Help me hit for 1,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read every one of them. Thank you. I never liked company dinners. They're all just glossy smiles, cold chicken, and people pretending to like each other for the sake of quarterly numbers. But that night, something was off before we even walked through the door. Emily adjusted her necklace in the car's rearview mirror. Is this too much? She asked, her voice light but a little uncertain. You look beautiful, I said. And she did. Simple green dress. No jewelry except the silver necklace I got her last anniversary. Nothing flashy. Nothing inappropriate. But when we walked into the venue, my boss Daniel Hughes looked at her like she was some sort of ghost he hadn't expected to see again. Emily, he said with this slow, polished smile, you look stunning tonight. It wasn't just what he said. It was the pause before the word stunning, like he tasted it before speaking. His eyes stayed on her too long, like he'd seen her before in a way I hadn't. Emily gave a tight smile, barely above a polite nod. Daniel. That was the first moment I felt something shift. She said his name like it hurt, and I noticed it immediately. We were led to the table. Daniel's wife Claire was already seated, sipping wine and smiling at nothing. Emily sat next to me, directly across from Daniel. She kept her posture straight the whole evening, like her spine had been replaced with steel. Daniel kept trying to include her in the conversation. Small things at first. Emily, you used to work in design, right? Emily, are you still into architecture? Emily, you've always had such great taste. I hadn't told him half that stuff, but somehow he knew or remembered. Emily deflected every question like a professional, polite, vague, careful, but I saw the stiffness in her smile, the way her hand kept clutching her napkin under the table. At one point, Daniel raised his glass and said, 2 old connections and fresh starts. Emily didn't raise hers. That moment passed quickly, but it left something in the air, a silence, like everyone else missed it. But I didn't. I started watching everything. The way Daniel leaned in just a little too much when Emily spoke. The way Emily never once looked him in the eye. The laughter felt fake. The food tasted like paper. I wanted to ask her. Right then, I wanted to pull her aside and say, what is going on here? But I did in single quotes. Instead, I did what I always do when I don't understand something. I watched. I noted. I waited. Because one thing was clear. This wasn't about networking. This was personal. And I wasn't sure if I was standing on the edge of something about to explode, or something that had already happened quietly, without me even noticing. The dinner crawled forward like a play where everyone forgot their lines except for 2 people pretending they never met before. Emily excused herself halfway through dessert, murmuring something about the restroom. Daniel watched her go, not discreetly, not politely. He watched her walk out like a man watching a secret slipping through a crack in the wall. He didn't even blink. I gripped my water glass so tight the condensation ran down my wrist. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. When Emily came back, her face was pale. Her lipstick had been reapplied, but her eyes were wild like someone trying very hard not to let the panic show. She sat stiffly, and Daniel smiled at her like they had just shared a private joke. Then he leaned slightly across the table, speaking low but not low enough. It's been a while, he said. Emily's eyes locked on him sharply, almost angrily. Not long enough, she replied. Claire looked up briefly, confused, but Daniel just chuckled like nothing had happened. A joke, an old memory, something harmless, but it wasn't. Not to Emily. She didn't touch her fork after that, didn't speak unless directly asked. Her shoulders were tense, her jaw tight. The rest of the table went on with their clinking glasses and harmless banter, but I felt it like a ripple under still water. Something was boiling under the surface. When we finally stood to leave, Daniel stepped forward and shook my hand like a proud older brother. Logan, you've got a great eye and a lucky heart, he said, nodding at Emily. I hated how his voice sounded saying her name, like he'd said it in ways I never had. We walked to the car in silence. Emily didn't say a word, not on the ride home, not as she changed into her pajamas and climbed into bed. She curled away from me, her back stiff, her breathing quiet. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, piecing together everything. How Daniel knew she once studied architecture. How she never told me that Daniel was even a blip in her past. How he looked at her like something unfinished. And how she looked like a woman who'd hoped he never would. I didn't ask her that night. I couldn't. I wasn't angry. I wasn't jealous. I was confused because up until that evening, I thought I knew everything about my wife. But the woman beside me had just walked through a dinner filled with landmines, and I hadn't even known there was a battlefield under the floor. And Daniel? He wasn't just my boss anymore. He was a variable I hadn't accounted for. A man who knew something I didn't. A man who had looked at my wife with ownership in his eyes. I didn't sleep. The next morning, everything would break. I just didn't know it yet. I woke up to the sound of running water. Emily was already in the shower, steam curling out from under the bathroom door. I sat on the edge of the bed, head pounding from the weight of everything unsaid. Then her phone buzzed. I didn't mean to look. I swear I didn't. But it buzzed again and I saw the name on the lock screen. Daniel Hughes. The message preview just said, "We need to talk." Last night wasn't a coincidence. Something in my chest dropped. I picked up the phone. I didn't unlock it. I didn't need to. The look on her face when she stepped out of the bathroom, towel wrapped tight, wet hair clinging to her shoulders, that told me everything. She froze. Her eyes flicked to the phone in my hand, then to my face. And I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just asked, "How do you know him?" For a second, she looked like she might lie. I watched the hesitation, the flicker of fear in her eyes, and then she sat down next to me, dripping water onto the floor. She looked so small, so exhausted. "I didn't tell you," she began, voice barely above a whisper, "because I thought it was over. I prayed it was over." She told me everything. Years ago, before we met, she interviewed for a position at a design firm. Daniel was the senior manager back then. She said the interview started normal but shifted fast. Personal questions, invasive compliments, and wanted texts after she didn't get the job. She never replied. She blocked his number. She left the city for a while just to breathe. He was intense, she said. Not violent, not vulgar, just persistent, like he'd decided something about me that I didn't agree to. I sat in silence, heart hammering. She looked at me, her voice cracking. "When you took the job at his company, I thought, what are the odds?" He didn't recognize my last name. I dyed my hair. I never went to the office events. I thought I could outrun it. But last night, she continued, he recognized me. I could still hear his words. "You look stunning tonight. It's been a while. You've always had great taste." They weren't compliments. They were reminders, threads from a past she'd buried. I held her hand. "You should have told me." "I know," she whispered, eyes wet now, "but I didn't want you to see me as a victim. I didn't. Not for a second. I saw her as someone who carried a weight quietly, hoping it wouldn't touch the life we built. But now it had. I opened my phone, pulled up Daniel's message. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I looked at Emily and said, "This ends today. You're not dealing with this alone anymore." Her shoulders shook as she exhaled, like years of holding something and had finally broken loose. I had no plan yet, no strategy, but I knew two things. One, Daniel was about to regret last night. Two, I wasn't the quiet husband anymore. I was someone who saw everything now, and I was ready.